Hi there, I'm Holly McDonald with the Costa Mesa Pod, where we discuss all things concerning the lifestyle, businesses, and activities that make Costa Mesa such a great place to live. Today I'm joined by Angela, and Angela is an amazing architect based here in Costa Mesa, and I am so excited to have her here. So Angela, thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here as well.
Can you go ahead and just share a little bit more about your specialties that you handle?
Sure. I am a local architect. I specialize currently in residential remodels, additions, ground up. No job is too small for me. I also help people with tenant improvements. My motto is that I want to help people get through the permitting process or even just navigate the construction industry, because I find that a lot of homeowners and first-time business owners aren't building professionals, so they can easily get taken advantage of. And I like to be an advocate for people who can, people can count on me to help them through that.
Yeah, that is so true because oftentimes when people are doing a remodel, they don't know what's a fair price or what they should expect. And there's a reason I think a lot of times people are told to get multiple bids, but sometimes it's impossible timing wise to pin people down. So I think you also do commercial as well, right?
Yes, yeah, I do have a few commercial projects. I've worked on some churches. I have a project right now in Corona Del Mar on PCH, which is kind of exciting, in Newport, the neighboring town. So I work in all cities around Orange County and even in Los Angeles and Riverside counties.
Amazing. So how long have you been an architect?
I've been an architect. Well, I went straight to architecture school when I got out of high school, and the program that I was in had an internship component to it. So I worked in my first office when I was 20 years old. So I've got over 20 years experience at this point. I won't say exactly how many.
Yeah. And were you always in Southern California or other areas as well?
I grew up in Buffalo, New York. So I come from the snow belt. One of my internships was out here in Southern California with Walt Disney Imagineering, of all companies.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
it was Burbank. Yes, 80 degrees and sunny every day for 6 months. And so I called my parents and said, I'm never coming back to Buffalo, New York. But they made me go back and get my degree.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's similar. I'm from New Jersey. I went to school in Boston and then landed in LA and was like, no, thank you, not going back. So, but Buffalo is much harsher. So you did your time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So are there any cool projects? I mean, obviously you worked with Disney and Imagineering. Is there anything else that is something that's just like a feather in your cap that you would say that you've worked on?
Sure. I did resorts for 17 years before transitioning into residential. So I've designed some resorts that I'm sure people have heard of. I was on the art team for Atlantis in Dubai.
Oh.
I worked on a lot of NDA projects with a company I'd worked with as an intern, but they just don't let you speak about working with them later. And then I also designed and led the design team actually for the Hard Rock in Los Cabos.
Oh, that's fun.
Some very cool projects in my resort days. And I feel like my experience with resorts really lends itself to helping people with residences with the California indoor-outdoor living style.
Yeah. So why don't you share and shed a little light on who needs an architect or who should consider having an architect if they're, planning to do anything to their home? I know you mentioned you do big projects, small projects, but when would somebody need to call in an architect as opposed to just picking up the phone and calling a contractor?
Oftentimes, contractors will call an architect when they know that they need one. So it is okay. There are some good contractors out there who will hook you up with an architect. If you would like to know when to start with the architect first, I'd say anytime you're doing a design, it would be great to have the architect contracted directly with you, because the architect speaks the building professional's language and the architect can advocate, oh, sometimes a contractor will say this doesn't meet code, and it might actually meet code. It's just that the contractor is not familiar with that certain way.
Yeah.
And our code changes so rapidly that architects are required to stay on top of it. And I say a good rule of thumb, if you don't know when you need to get a building permit, obviously the building department would want you to get a permit anytime you add a light fixture or change something to your utilities. It is absolutely critical when you're adding area, a bedroom or a bathroom to get a building permit. And then I would recommend an architect when you go through that process.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you're like, when you're actually adding square footage to a home, I know it comes up a lot on the real estate side too, when people are concerned about, well, why does the square footage records that are on title not match what we're seeing here in person? Is that a concern? Is the house, is it sound, right? Is it sturdy? So do you ever get called in after the fact to reevaluate properties that may have been added onto in the past? Is that something that you've ever had to deal with?
Yes, I do that work quite a bit as well. It's called a retroactive permit. So what you would call in an architect to do at that point, it's usually if your neighbors have reported some work that was done without a permit, or if it comes up in public record and you want to know if it's safe. And you would come in, you have to demo some things to make sure, that there's enough concrete in the foundation, there's enough insulation and everything in the walls to resist earthquakes. For we need strapping and all kinds of crazy stuff, but you can still get a permit on something that was previously built with a little bit of demo and cost.
I do feel like that is something that comes up quite frequently in some of the older cities. I mean, Costa Mesa has a ton of new construction, but it also has a lot of homes from the 50s and 60s, and over time, as families grew and houses were small, people, they did some interesting modifications.
Yeah. And unfortunately, things might have been built to standard at the time they were done, but if there was no permit, then they'd have to be brought up to today's standard. So that does sometimes cause a headache.
I'm sure that can be a major expense. Have you ever seen people have to actually just completely remove a structure?
I think some people have decided to do that. Yes, some structures you can tell by looking at them that we're going to have to put so much money into this. You might just want to tear it down and start over.
Start from scratch. Yeah. Is there anything that you think would be of interesting note about Costa Mesa rules, regulations that might come up that when somebody's remodeling, they might not think about? And more so specific just to Costa Mesa, if you can think of anything.
Well, there are some, and even in other cities, parking requirements is one that I think people don't think about a lot. If you're going to add over 4 bedrooms in Costa Mesa, you're required to have 2 covered parking spaces and 2 off-street uncovered parking spaces. So that's something that I know a lot of people get caught up with. If you have an old non-conforming garage like we do, we don't have uncovered spaces. So we would not be able to add extra bedrooms unless we added parking somewhere.
Oh, so would a driveway count, or does it have to be like a carport?
A driveway counts for uncovered parking spaces as long as it is 19 feet long by 17 feet wide.
Okay, yeah. And in some neighborhoods that is impossible, right? So you're kind of maxed out. That's a really good fact. And I was actually going to ask you, because there are so many more ADUs being constructed. I'm sure that plays a role in it too, right? Is that probably why you're seeing more of that?
Well, the funny thing is I advise people when we do have parking issues to add an ADU as part of the project, because adding an ADU eliminates the parking requirement. As long as you are within, I think it's 500 feet of public transportation, which in Costa Mesa, pretty much everywhere you are is within 500 feet of public transportation.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so you could have more square footage and you can bypass the parking essentially, as long as you've got the public transit, but then you could still have more space. You could possibly rent it out. I mean, it's kind of up to you what you do with it. That's really cool. Yeah. We're seeing a lot more
interesting thing. The state's trying to encourage, the the homeowners, I guess, to help us with the housing crisis. So,
Yes, yes. Which neighborhood are you in?
I'm in Mesa Del Mar.
That's a great neighborhood. How do you like it there?
Well, we love the neighborhood. Where we are in the neighborhood is pretty close to Fairview. So we're not in the heart of it, but we still love, there's a very cool community feel. People have golf carts, even though we have no golf carts. Of course, we have, soccer right behind the house and lots of friends here.
Yeah. And you're right by the fair. So lots of stuff going on. Yeah, that is a great neighborhood. And I do know I've seen pictures of like the 4th of July parade with all of this stuff going on, lots of golf carts, bikes, everything decorated. So that's really fun. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, Angela, and work with you potentially, what is the best way for them to find you and have that conversation?
I'm easy to find through my website, which is www.socalh, it's the letter H, the number 2, the letter H.com. So socalh2h.com. And then it has all of my contact info on there.
Okay, yeah. So anybody that is thinking about remodeling their home, doing any sort of addition, needing any sort of tenant improvements, if they're renting a space or whatnot, Angela can help you out with all of that. Well, Angela, thank you so much for sharing a little bit of useful information about all of the rules and regulations and how people can work with you. I'm so happy that you guys were able to be part of the podcast, and I hope people will reach out to you with all of their questions and needs.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed being on here. And yes, I'm happy to help if anyone has any questions.
All right. Thanks, Angela. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.